Paradox Interactive, a Swedish company founded in 1999, had, by the late 2010s, established a reputation as the gaming industry's most fervent producers of autism-friendly software.
My favourite train is the choo-choo train.
While civilization was abstracted and historically divergent to the point where every unit apparently had an accreditation in seamanship, and Total War Bad Map Simulator that doubled as a support group for idiotic AI, Paradox games were famous for being complex and convoluted to the point where even starting the game would require a trip to the wiki, and moving a unit wanted to watch through Quill18's 5 billion videos. Their current lineup consisted of 4 main historical games that each served a different time period. Crusader Kings 2, despite the title, was not a game primarily about crusading or kings. Instead, it was an incest simulator famous for allowing a 12th century monarch to have romantic relationships with a horse.
It's called clopping, Dad. It's something every brony does, okay?
Europa Universalis 4, Paradox's crown jewel, is perhaps the most realistic representation of being a ruler in the early modern period. Destroy ancient cultures, commit genocide, send thousands to die for a strip of land. You can do it all in this game, so long as you purchase the $500 worth of DLC. Victoria 2, the darling of r/Paradox Plaza, lured you in by looking like the rest of its siblings, but actually featured an economic system so obtuse, the people who developed the bloody game didn't completely know how it worked. Finally, Hearts of Iron 4 had carved out a niche as baby's first World War II simulator that allowed you to storm Normandy and freeze to death in Russia, only this time you could do it without having to memorize what these things meant. However, despite this wide selection of virtual birth control,
the thing you need when you're
not
banging a chick, of course.
I suppose you mean
Paradox games,
my young fellow.
Paradox still believed that there was a gap in the market that no company had yet to address, and got to work on building a brand new game. And an announcement came in early 2018 that it was going to be fully revealed at the company's annual convention, ParadoxCon. Oh god, the tension was real! Many in the community thought it was going to be the long-awaited sequel to Victoria 2. This guy went slightly nuts with his predictions.
Ooh, saxophone.
And there were rumors that the game was being worked on by one Johan Andersson, a veteran game designer who had lent his hand to practically everything the company had released. On May 11th, 7 days before the big reveal, the first official hit dropped. Then another, then another, then another.
Sir, our systems are being overwhelmed. We can't handle the amount of teasers being thrown at us.
Alright, don't panic. We've trained for this. Lads, let's get to work. Okay, popular demand, minorities. Something that's loved by everyone, yet also within a minority. I have a black friend. What are they like?
Sir, we've just intercepted this post.
Goods, produced, important. Write those words up, son. We're getting close.
Real packaroons.
Religion.
We were preparing some young English boys.
Present. What do I want as a present? Bard. What am I barred from? By Jove, I've got it. Turn on the live stream. It's coming. Wait for it.
Are you ready to make your mark on history? Free League Publishing and Paradox Interactive are proud to present Crusader Kings, the board game.
Good job, boys. Nailed it.
In Crusader Kings, the
Oh shit, I forgot to carry the 1. Just hang on. Okay, it's actually coming this time.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special trailer reaction. And yes, I'm on vacation, but it's happened. It just came out like 23 minutes ago. I'm hot and sweaty. It is hot out here. It's beautiful, but it's not about that. I told everybody, even Mary knows, she's actually up at the spa, so I'm all good. There we go, and let's do this.
Are you excited about that? What's going on?
Be able to see it through the tears. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Oh god, it's Rome!
No fucking way! Yes! Oh my god! How do they make this more and more epic every time? How do they make this more and more epic every time? What? No! The Emperor?
France, romance, countryman,
Lend me your ears.
Oh god, we're lending our ears, Johan!
And now I'm terribly happy and proud to be able to finally reveal our new grand strategy game.
Oh god! The hell is an Imperator? Oh, okay, that. Where were we? Oh yeah. Oh god, the features!
We will have pops. We will have multiple unit types. We will have units like chariots, war elephants.
Whoa, Johan, you'd better stop with these features, otherwise other games won't even have a prayer of success.
We will have heavy cavalry and legions.
Alright, pack it up boys, game's over. Why even bother competing at this point?
It will be played on a huge map, stretching all the way from Britain to India.
Oh god, the scale!
From Scandinavia to Ethiopia.
Oh god, there are more features!
We will have characters that can be loyal or disloyal or to start civil wars.
Loyal and disloyal? Jesus Christ, man, that's two types of character!
There's too many of them.
Safe to say, the public was going nuts.
It's kicking off.
And there are absolutely no awkward pauses to look at a teleprompter.
And
the best part yet, there was still more to find out, because, in keeping with company tradition, the public would receive one developer diary a week, detailing all the features they could expect in Paradox's new grand strategy game. Wait, so I can get hype constantly injected into my bloodstream every Monday, instead of having to wait for the game to actually come out.
Am I supposed to last 5 days without
an update on the game's progress?
Well then, sign me up. The dev diaries came and went, each detailing a particular feature of the game. 1 week you could learn about civil wars.
Why is it called civil? May I kill you, please? Sure.
The next would be a crash course in the Senate. Barbarians in one post.
Ah, the barbarians are at the gate!
Navies in the next. Merchants.
Nobody ever got rich being honest.
Law.
9 coppers for one lad.
The economy. Oh my. Nothing was left off the table. The hype was building. Trailers were being released. YouTubers were getting sneak peeks. And, what's more, thanks to the success of its previous games, Paradox was bigger than ever, with its 4 grand strategy titles consistently boasting player numbers in the tens of thousands each month. No longer was the company a niche Swedish developer peddling games to the Gerards and Marks of the world.
I'd like to buy Hearts of Iron 4,
please.
Of course.
It's for my son. He's a big fan of the new deal.
It was a publicly listed company that had hundreds of employees in the salt mines and a die-hard fan base, no stranger to wasting money. If everything went smoothly, then Imperator would surely be a triumph. But things weren't going smoothly. As early as Dev Diary 3, people were voicing their displeasure.
I get angry about it, and it shouldn't be happening.
Dev Diaries 5 and 6 were also victims of the wrath of the plebeians. And then Dev Diary 14 came along and was curb-stomped by a relentless tirade of disagrees. And then after that, people just stopped reading them when they realized that the posts themselves weren't all that substantial.
You're shorter than I expected.
Most of the time, it was just a few hundred words of pretty fluff surrounding an ancient civilization, followed up by a few sentences on how that ancient civilization, bathed in hundreds of years of history and tradition, was going to have its defining characteristics bottled up into a single number or button. For example, Greece and Dev Diary 23. North of 1,000 words taken straight from Year 12 ancient history handouts, but the only things that affected gameplay were these percentages. Take that! It's the same with Roman gameplay. More percentages. Want to play as the Carthaginians? Hope you like percentages. What's the difference between these barbarians and those barbarians? Well, funny you should ask really, because the game actually simulates complex tribal customs. Nope, more percentages. And that's even if you get percentages to muck around with. Some dev diaries literally spent 3/4 of their length talking about all the different nations you could play as, while not dedicating a single word to how gameplay would actually change. It appeared that Paradox viewed diverse gameplay as, this is Rome, but it's Rome in the desert! Whoa, how we do that? They may have advertised dozens of different Gallic tribes, but who the hell cares about that when the only thing separating Pictonia and Santonia is a color in the prefix, especially when each week you're being served up these kinds of descriptions.
Small tribal kingdom north of the obscure
Facts, details, condense, plot, tell it.
But perhaps the biggest crack in Imperator was the early announcement that it was going to use the mana system made famous by Europa Universalis. What is mana? Oh baby! It's time for a history lesson.
What the Earth was like 100 years ago.
In Europa Universalis 4, an extremely important mechanic of the game was monarch power, or mana, to the community. Intended to act as an abstraction of the collective power of the entire nation, mana was the lifeblood of your people, and, apart from money, the only way to get things done. Everything cost a certain type of mana, from raising taxes...
It's the worst part of the game. Oh, it's what? Taxes!
...to changing culture...
I'm American. I think I'll use my credit card.
...to discovering technology.
Periodical pizza shields. We can take these to the dragons.
We'll make our fortune.
In some cases, this abstraction works well.
Nice.
The hell am I kidding? It makes no sense whatsoever, since actions that are, in reality, completely unrelated, are suddenly linked by a single number. Want to take a city in negotiations? Unfortunately, last year, your scientists discovered how to create a magnifying glass, so no dice.
We shall take your castle by force!
Planning on assaulting a castle? Ha! You shouldn't have raised those war taxes 10 years ago. Mana was already a pretty divisive issue.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
But when news broke that Imperator was going to be heavily reliant on the system, many in the community saw the writing on the wall and voiced their opinions accordingly. Johan, however, was less than accommodating to these complaints.
Another DD and another gameplay mechanic that is entirely balanced and designed around using your magic mana points. I don't want IR to be EU4 in ancient times.
I don't think you'll love our games from now on.
Ooh, that stinks, Rance. Yeah, that stinks.
Regardless of these problems, Paradox pushed on. They couldn't stop now just because a few basement-dwelling Redditors disagreed. And besides, Hearts of Iron 4 sold amazingly well because it was a much-needed simplification of Hearts of Iron 3.
Yeah, I'm a Tommy K sub too. Let's talk about fucking World War II generals for 2 hours, man.
After all, casual didn't necessarily mean bad. Abstract didn't necessarily mean easy. Only time would tell. 25th of April, 2019. It's launch day and everything's ready. Special editions are available for purchase.
Sold!
The wiki is primed and ready to be updated. And YouTubers have been busy cranking out pre-release videos to help flatten the learning curve to a slightly more manageable learning speed bump. But that's still all the pre-game stuff.
This was the best pre-game of my entire life!
How does Imperator actually play? Psst, kid, want a hint? Remember those dev diaries? Well, nothing's changed. Call Picasso and Thoreau because, oh god, everything's way too abstract and simple, and over-reliance on mana and percentages means that most of the gameplay is just clicking a button to change a modifier.
I was right there in the next room while you were clicking
Imperators.
brains out.
Occasionally, Paradox might be generous and give you a whopping 4 buttons to mess around with.
4? That's insane.
But those instances are few and far between. Changing your nation's culture can be done instantaneously. There are only 4 improvements available to build, and all of them cost the exact same amount of gold. And don't even get me started on how the game portrays Rome's 2 consoles, because I literally can't. For some reason, there's only one console, even though a 10-year-old with an internet connection could tell you the correct number. Another wave of criticism directed at the game is that it's about as deep as a plate of cereal. As previously mentioned, the dev diaries had precious little detail regarding the individual characteristics of a particular nation beyond the vaguest of info.
Do you know what an artist and a
good game
have in common? Details.
While other Paradox games had thousands of books to draw the most minute detail from, Imperators was an era so shrouded in mystery and bias that the developers weren't even sure that some tribes in the map actually existed. Which means that each nation, apart from the 2 lucky enough to have the name Rome or Carthage, play basically the same. Step 1. Wait around until you have enough mana and manpower to declare war.
Finally, Jesus Christ.
Step 2. Point and click on the enemy's capital. Step 3. While doing that, read a few generic events here and there. Step 4. Rinse and repeat.
Hello?
Naturally, this doesn't sit that well with those players foolish enough to expect unique gameplay from a $60 game, and more complaints stream in. There's also a bit of a subplot about how the UI is unfit for human consumption, since some of the icons make no bloody sense, some of the buttons don't bloody work.
So, right-clicking this does nothing. Actually, even this doesn't highlight the provinces, so there's no way to see what province this stuff is coming from. If you want to have any idea who it's from, you have to click. Again, you can't right-click these to center on them, you have to left-click, and of course that closes your trade route scenes. I have to remember the province names, and I have to go back, go through like 3 or 4 clicks to get to this menu, and then set up the trade route.
Sometimes there's too much detail on display, and sometimes there's not enough.
You have to look at both the attrition before modifiers and the maximum, instead of, you know, actually seeing the attrition.
Now, obviously this part is a pretty minor issue, since there are many games, especially ones that fall into the strategy genre, that feature a much worse UI. But it's still something that many in the community have a grand old time complaining about. This lack of overall detail and depth led many to believe that Paradox intentionally released a shell of a game, with the plan being to later force it back to life via a generous dose of DLC, that of course anyone wanting the proper Imperator experience would have to pay for. Given the company's track record, this wasn't exactly a shot in the dark. And wow, what a surprise, people are angry, complaints are made, forums are flooded, you get the idea.
There is no fucking mindset in this football club.
Everything was falling apart. The reviews, while funny to read, weren't exactly the ones you put at the front of the box. The Paradox subreddit had turned into a free karma farm so long as you made sure to bash the game. And even Paradox's own S.A.X had taken the gloves off and got to work. Remy in particular made a great video explaining just why Imperator was not only underwhelming,
oh, let's go, that's class!
but also a poor foundation to build a game on. I definitely recommend watching it in full, especially if you're curious about the flaws of the mana system talked about previously. But to summarize,
this game is not a good foundation, nor is it a good base game for a better game in the future. Mana has hamstrung this game, and why it's a poor mechanic of a bygone era that should no longer be relied upon. It's not that you can't change strategy, and strategy isn't about reaction. In fact, strategy is very much about reacting as new situations arise. But with no penalty, there's no reason to plan ahead. A nation like Sparta with a giant army will get no more military mana than any other nation. In a similar fashion, Rome gets the same mana income as some random tribal country, with again, the monarch being the only difference. And it will take more than a few flavor packs and nation DLCs to change it. It's fundamentally resting on a bed of dull, old mechanics.
Or, to really summarize,
Imperator Rome, bad mana, bad Paradox, bad.
The final coup de grace for Imperator was that player numbers were dropping fast.
Oh my god! Oh jeez, oh my god!
The month of May brought with it 13,000 peak players. The month of June, 1,600. Push that down to 974 by August, and suddenly you've got a player count lower than that of Victoria 2. A Paradox game released in 2010 that hadn't received DLC since 2013. The game doing poorly compared to Paradox's big boys, EU4 and Hearts of Iron, that was acceptable.
That's okay, you could have done better.
Those games had years to refine the gameplay, polish their mechanics, and build up a massive stockpile of DLC. But losing to Weedy Little Vicky?
Knockout!
This was getting embarrassing. Okay boys, the community's out to crucify us. We need some options. We need to fix the major flaws the community has of the game. Get in there and add some Roman discipline to Imperator's backbone. We need to add some more flavor, get some spices in there, some Carthaginian events, some Egyptian tales, some Iberian stories.
Some raviolis and some rigatonis and some rice-a-ronis. Forget about it!
What if we just tell everyone to piss off? For a while, Paradox's strategy was one in denial.
Bullshit, I did not hit her.
Johan in particular refused to believe the game was that bad.
That's impossible!
Negative reviews?
Worst episode ever.
Shouldn't have bought the game then.
Buyer beware.
Poor mechanics.
These bloody
Paradox
mechanics, they don't know shit.
Oh, no, it's just Paradox tradition. Wait, Johan, you were actively getting into fights regarding the mana system before the game's release. Why didn't you just take those complaints on board and actually fix the problems the community had? Naturally, this dogged defense gave pissed off Paradox fans plenty of ammo to use in the forums. Although by this point, you can't help but feel a little sorry for the guy. Not only was his newest game, the one he saw as his magnum opus,
okay, I see what you did there,
being torn to shreds, but people were going back in time and ripping into his older games as well. After heading Imperator's development for another year, Johan would eventually move on to sunny Barcelona to work on some different stuff for the company. Looking back now, he could have certainly dealt with being less arrogant during development.
Who does he think he is? Jesus?
But oh gee whiz, I wonder why he wanted to quit making games. Eventually Paradox realised that it'd be a better idea to just fix the damn game and got to work on some patches. But these weren't going to be your grandma's nice and friendly patches where the colour of a flag was changed from navy to dark blue. These are going to be massive, awe-inspiring,
they're so awesome,
take no prisoners, trick the rules type patches. 1.1 basically made the game
irrelevant.
1.2 made 1.1 extra
irrelevant.
And if you thought you could just take a breather and learn how to play that version of the game, well, you're a bloody idiot. Because 1.3 is here and is ready to tear down this game. Updates were dropping. Reviews started climbing. The player base picked up. Paradox's strategy of continuously throwing everything but the kitchen sink out of the window seemed to be paying off.
Great job with the strategy.
Couple of the aforementioned updates with some decent DLC, and you've got a winning formula. In early December, the free Punic Wars DLC drops and brings with it an increase in around 5,000 players. Next year, late March, at Magna Graecia hits the beaches, focusing on adding flavour to the Greeks.
This is the strong sperm, this is the Greek god, okay, Greek god.
It works, and the player base goes up by 1,500. Round 3, Epirus is here, and boosts its numbers by a cool 1,000.
Yo.
Finally, February 2021, a date which will live in infamy. Paradox fans were suddenly and deliberately attacked by the combined DLC and free patch forces of the Empire of Imperator. We're talking engineers.
I saw a girl in a lecture once.
We're talking a professional military.
No way is a man who makes TikToks defending my country.
We're talking tons of flavor for 5, count 'em, 5 nations in Asia and the Eastern Med. And we're talking a bunch of bug fixes and balance tweaks. Admittedly, these players would soon lose interest a few weeks after a patch dropped, causing numbers to dive below 1,000 for months at a time, which meant that, 2 years on from Imperator's release, it was still getting consistently destroyed by Vicky 2. But regardless, it was progress, and Paradox had a track record of supporting games long after a launch. Indeed, this was actually a line that was often repeated on r/Paradox Plaza. If the company had managed to transform Imperator into a product that was slightly above average in just 2.5 years, imagine what they could do with 5, or even 10.
Think, Mark, think!
Could this be Imperator's redemption story? Reviewers had clawed their way toward mostly positive, and ParadoxCon was just around the corner.
I mean, that's the stuff of, like, legends, you know?
What was next? Barbarians? A naval expansion? A mechanic dealing with Gaelic use of magic potion of warfare? Let's have a look, shall we? Oh no. Oh no. Oh god, no. Hey, they're actually making it. That isn't so bad. Oh crap, where were we? Oh yeah. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh
man. Oh god, oh man, oh god, oh man, oh god.
Okay, we're just gonna stop things right there. We could go deeper into community reaction to development halting, and the fan-made mods that are currently attempting to transform Imperator far more effectively than Paradox ever could, but I reckon I'll take from the company themselves and leave the job half finished.
Polite laughter, polite laughter, polite laughter.
But in all seriousness, Imperator never truly got going. From the moment the first dev diaries were released, many die-hard fans were voicing complaints.
Come on! When is it gonna end, Robbie?
The launch was an utter train wreck that resulted in all the pent-up rage harbored by the Paradox community being released on a semi-unfortunate victim. And even the updates, promising as they initially seemed, struggled to hold an audience.
Boring!
Things would get better for Paradox with the next release.
Sector is clear.
Not clear, not clear!
And then they would get much, much worse. But that's a story for another time. Wink, wink. But for now, I think it's time to just watch Rome burn. Perhaps some fiddle music will lighten the mood. No word of a lie though, I'm still gonna buy Vicky 3 the second it releases.
They must see it through the tears.